Yeah, he had a lot of nerve sending that message this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, Judge Dunson is joining us as well. All right, great.
All right, great. All right, I'm calling to order the meeting of the Board of Continuing Legal Education of the North Carolina State Bar. This is a called meeting. I would advise the members of the board that their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and each is instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before the board with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict. And so I'll start out by asking if anyone is aware of any conflicts they may have. Seeing none, I will note that there is a quorum present. And I'll turn the meeting, and I'll first ask, did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes from the September 6th, 2022 meeting? Any corrections or additions to those minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Adrian and second by Judge Eggers. Then we'll move to the review of the proposed changes. All in favor, excuse me. All in favor indicate by a wave of hand or aye. All right, moving then to the, and I note that approval, review of the proposed changes to the CLE rules. Peter, you're on.
Thanks, Judge. At our last meeting, we talked about some items that we wanted to take a look at based off of the comments we received and review of the rules that we'd already published. They were just some clarifying language to the exemptions rule. I'll put them up here in a second. The carryover credit rule. We had requests to kind of clarify what we mean by active monitoring or interactivity for on-demand courses, and then clean up that compliance rule and decide if we wanted to increase the length of time that a lawyer has to come into compliance or show good cause. And so those are the 4 rules that I'm offering today for the board to actually consider. And we can talk about some of the other rules that we will want to revisit in the future, but those are the rules that I'm proposing that we consider today, so we can get those published at the council meeting in a couple weeks. And so I'll just share my screen and we can go down the list. And if there's any questions or if we want to take them one by one on a vote, might be better unless everyone wants to do them all together. Okay, so this is the first rule here is just clarifying the exemptions. It does not change anything for the non-resident exemption. We just wanted to make it more clear what qualifies to get that non-resident exemption. It's the same language that I previewed to you guys at the last meeting. And the second part in the exemptions is just eliminating that word status in the senior exemption, because there is no real status. It's not it's just an exemption, and we tend to get confusion there. Someone says, well, I took senior status, and they think that kind of means permanent. And this is still an annual exemption that has to be claimed. And so we just proposing to delete that word status for the senior exemption.
Okay, any discussion about these changes? Okay, is there a motion to approve these changes?
So moved.
A movement by Dayton, a second.
Second.
Second by Adrienne. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay. All right, that carries. Peter, your next one.
Okay. So this rule is the carryover credit rule. So if you remember, we in our first proposal of the rules, we proposed to eliminate carryover credit. that didn't sit well with anyone. And we also, I think there were some strong arguments for bringing back carryover credit to incentivize lawyers to take courses, even if they might not need them in that reporting period, and to allow them a chance to make sure that they have a buffer to where they're not trying to hit their requirement right on the number and accidentally falling short. We've then published a rule amendment that moved it to 6 hours. The council appreciated that, but also asked us to come back and look and see if we could increase that up to 12. And I don't have any issue with this. I think that it kind of puts us back to the status quo where a lawyer can get up to 12, but it does not allow them to kind of take 2 reporting periods worth of hours in one. It still is only 12 hours of credit, and that's all this would do. It just changes 6 to 12 and makes it clear that that 12 does not satisfy. You can't use it to satisfy any of the specialty type credits like ethics, substance abuse, and technology. It has to be. It'll just go towards a lawyer's total hours for that reporting period.
So the first question is, anyone have any discussion on the change from 6 to 12 hours? Because we had pretty much agreed that we would provide for carryover. This is just a change from the 6 to 12 from our last meeting. Okay, not seeing anyone asking to speak. Is there a motion to approve this amendment?
So moved.
I
All
got
right,
a motion.
I'll second it.
I got a motion by Burt and a second by Judge Eggers. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by aye or hand sign.
Aye.
All right, that is approved. We'll go to the next one.
So at our last meeting, we briefly talked about the request to provide some clarification on what we mean by a reliable method for recording and verifying attendance for on-demand courses. I think that there's certainly some variation and variance from sponsor to sponsor on what sponsors consider reliable methods for actively monitoring the attendance for these on-demand courses. And we looked at what some other states do. Some states have some very detailed requirements or require pre-approval. And I think at what this proposal is kind of just making it something that they have to disclose during their course program application, so we can at least see what their plan is, and if we can determine then that it's a reliable method for monitoring this attendance. We also propose to add the word actively to make sure that this is something that they're whatever the method is able to actively monitor this, and not just a lawyer's claim after the fact that they paid attention to that they attended the whole thing. That this has some sort of method for actively monitoring when a lawyer's taking an on-demand course. And if we this allows us to then see these descriptions and details and kind of determine if there is a bigger issue that needs even more detailed clarification after we start to see what these descriptions are, and it will force the applicant to disclose what they consider to be actively monitoring, and we can tell them if that's not sufficient.
Peter, I'm wondering if we ought to add some language here, basically to say that what the description that they provide must be acceptable to you or the staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I would be okay with.
I wouldn't want you to be hung up in arguments with sponsors of about whether they've satisfied the rule simply by providing.
By disclosing it.
description.
Yeah.
So if we
That's
could-
certain. Yep. I'm totally fine with that. So I think that would be probably something maybe in the first sentence, the sponsor of an online or on-demand program must have a reliable method for actively verifying attendance and reporting the number of credit hours earned by each participant. Or, I mean,
So do you think if you just put approved in front of actively?
yeah, I was thinking, yeah, like if you had
Or in front of, have a reliable and approved method for actively verifying, something like that.
mhm. I think that would work. Yeah, I think you could either say must have an approved method for reliably and actively verifying attendance. So let me show you. All right. So must have an approved method for reliably and actively verifying attendance and reporting the number of credit hours earned by each participant. Applications for any on-demand must include a description of the sponsor's attendance verification procedure.
That way, if their description isn't sufficient, you can go back and say your method is not approved yet. Give us more information.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
So we have a couple of our sponsors online. Do you have any issue about understanding what that means?
Most of the online CLEs, you have to have every 15 minutes, you have to hit a button to say that you're paying attention, or you have to answer questions at the end to verify that you're an active participant.
But do you think this is, whatever method you decide to use, do you think it's clear in this, the way we've changed it, that you have to have some type of method and it has to be approved by the staff?
I think that's very clear, yes.
Yeah.
And it's expected.
Right.
Just for our sponsor's sake, I will just tell you something that I really like, and it's silly, but when, like, if you have the prompts for the I guess quiz for those little sections, the applause is wonderful. I really like that. So I mean, I'll just throw that out for you. You know, people love that. At least it's
Maybe let's put that in the rule, Judge, that it has to have a supportive and
applause meter.
Applause meter. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions of Peter or suggestions on the rule? Is there a motion to approve the rule as we have now amended it?
So moved.
Moved by Dayton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Adrienne. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Or hand sign. All right, that's approved. All right, now to the fourth matter.
Yes, so there's two parts to this. I'll start with the easier one. The second part of this change was just cleaning up the language for reinstatement. We've kind of, in looking at what we had originally published, realized that we were just restating what the language was already in the administrative rule, and that can create issues if one is changed and the other is not, and that it'd be easier to have all of the reinstatement process just covered in the administrative rule, since that's who does the reinstatement. And so the proposal would be to just, we've added the paragraph G that says suspended members must petition for reinstatement to active status pursuant to Rule 0.0904 of the subchapter. And then we went ahead and just deleted this entire entire rule that related to reinstatement. So that way everyone is, they're all treated the same from an administrative suspension. And they have to satisfy the requirements in the administrative rule. So that's the first part. The second part was something we talked about last meeting, was whether or not this new compliance process limits a lawyer's time to comply and creates something that's overly burdensome, whereas the current rule allows a lawyer 30 days to comply to the notice of show cause, and then they get a notice of suspension that gives them 30 days to comply before that suspension is active. So it amounts to 60 days of time. And our original proposed rule would only have that, would combine those two things into a 30-day time period. So what I've got here in front of you for consideration is that we make that a 45-day time period, to make sure that we still feel like we're giving the lawyer enough time to comply. I know that in our discussions last time, there was, I don't think anyone was 100% sure how they felt about it. So, and I'm not going to lose any sleep either way. I told you I would come back with that proposal, and that's what this is, would essentially change the 30-day period to 45 days. That would then, that's when the suspension would become active if they don't comply or show good cause.
Any discussion? 30 days versus 45 days? Or I guess it's actually 45 days versus 30 days. Do we think we should change it to 45 days?
Yes. Given that the period is 3 years now, instead of 1 year.
Okay.
I tend to agree.
Everybody happy with 45 days then? Bert, was that a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Judge.
All right, we got a motion from Bert and a second from Judge Eggers. Any other discussion?
I'd offer one little tiny change in what is now subsection C. I guess I'm haunted by an old English teacher I had in high school. I'd start that sentence with the typewritten word 60 instead of the number 60.
Done.
All right, as amended, I'll ask all those in favor indicate by saying aye or by hand sign.
Aye.
All right.
And I think that's everybody. So that with that and the reinstatement part, both of those are approved. That's one thing.
Okay.
Then we have the proposed fee schedule.
Yeah, so that was some, I hope that your brain's recovered from looking at all of that financial information. It was quite a bear to deal with. And so I'm gonna kind of walk you guys through these sheets, and then we'll kind of discuss where to go from here. Let me share. So what I did was I took all of the course, got a course report from our database, and I'll show you what it looks like when I have the things unhidden so you can kind of see. These are essentially, this is every course for the year from every sponsor for 2021. And I created the formulas to try to determine what each one of these years, 2018 through 2021, would have looked like under the proposed fee schedule compared to what it actually was under the old rules, to see what what the effect would be. And then what I did is I put it here for the effect for each sponsor. When you look at it, the things that stand out are there are a number of sponsors right now who have a lot of courses that they offer every year that are not paying any attendance fees for those courses. They're not required to, being out of state. So, for example, a sponsor like Law Line or TRT CLE, they have 800 courses that they offer that they've had approved, but the fees are being paid by the lawyers right now for any course that they take. So the sponsors are not having to pay anything. They're not having to pay an application fee or an attendance fee. They're just getting to offer their courses. When you look at what I've done, this is the column for what we had talked about in the original proposed fee schedule. And you see that it certainly creates a big increase in some sponsors' costs. Some of the national providers or out-of-state providers that either weren't paying fees or were only paying for the attendance fees for those people who took their courses would have a significant increase under this proposal because they would have to pay for each of the courses that they want to be approved for credit. And so there would be an increase there. You'd also see that there are some providers, it often looks like there are a lot of the in-state providers who have a lot of attendance in their current CLEs that are paying a fair amount of money in attendance fees because they have high attendance at their courses, would see a reduction in their costs under this model because it's cheaper it would end up being less expensive to pay a course application than to pay all of the $3.50 attendance fees for all of their different programs for each lawyer. When you look at, if you go down, you can see the bottom here where it's got it totaled up. And what I found by running the proposed attendance or the proposed fee schedule on these years is that assuming the courses were the same number, that the providers didn't immediately reduce their course count, we would be bringing in a substantial amount more money than what we currently are, because the proposed fee schedule also is combined with the annual attendance fee that we are proposing to charge lawyers of $25 a year. And so it looks like, at least under this model, if we don't see a gigantic reduction in courses, that we would be bringing in too much money. This would be and the one thing to note is that under this proposed fee schedule, these on-demand courses are $100, but they're good for 3 years. And so we'd have to divide and there would be a year that has a significant amount of money brought in because they're getting their courses in. And then there would be the next 2 years where it would be a lot less money because they had already had their courses approved and they don't have to pay again for that year under the proposed fee schedule. So it would be a big variation from revenue. I'll need to run that number. Probably instead of having the $100 applied to on demand, I would have to switch it to $33 so we can kind of see what an average would look like over a 3-year period. So that's something that I'll continue to do as we look at this. So it did look like to me, when you look at the totals, that the income generated and brought in under the proposed fee schedule is substantially higher than what we're bringing in now, over $1 million more if the course counts were to be the same. I think it's unlikely that the course counts would be the same. If this fee schedule was enacted, we would see a reduction in the courses offered by some of the providers who are currently not paying attendance fees or paying very little amounts of money in attendance fees. I did run some of those scenarios. So if you, in the scenarios here for the proposed fee schedule, I made some assumptions here after looking at what these national providers offer in other states, and I looked at what these providers do in states that have a course application fee versus states that don't, and tried to kind of get a gauge on what the effect would be if we added this course application fee. And so I have run 3 different scenarios. These are I ran these scenarios on the providers who offer more than 10 courses and who would be negatively affected financially, at least on, after running the numbers by the proposed fee schedule. So it wasn't I didn't run a reduction on everybody, only on the ones that offered more than 10 and were shown that they would have a negative financial impact. And so I did a scenario where there was only a 25% reduction in the number of courses that they offer, a scenario where if they were to reduce their course offerings by 50%, and a scenario if they were to reduce their offerings by 75%. It looks like to me, in looking at other states, that we're somewhere closer to in between the 25 and 50% reduction is what we might see, looking at what some of the providers offer in the states with attendance fees. And so I would think we're somewhere in between these numbers here. But this is the total that if we were to have those course reductions, you would see the revenue decrease significantly over the 3 scenarios. But still, even if we had a 25% reduction or a 75% reduction from those sponsors, the proposed fee schedule would still be bringing in more money than what was brought in with our current setup, which I found interesting. But if the scenario was closer to only a 25% reduction, then we would still be bringing in significantly more revenue than we need to be bringing in, and would have to look at potentially making other changes. So that's the proposed fee schedule. I then kind of, just for comparison's sake, and I'm not here to say that this revised fee schedule is something that I think is the right answer, because I think that this is still this is just going to require us to kind of go back to the drawing board and take a look at this again to make sure that we get this right. But for comparison's sake, I ran a revised fee schedule that was, if you look at what the formula is for the revised fee schedule, it was going to charge, and I attached a kind of a copy of the revised fee schedule. If there was an attorney's fee, if an attorney applied for the credit, submitted the course, then it would be $25. If it was a free program of any length, it would be free. And if it was an on-demand course, it would be $50. And then anything else would be, if a course 4 hours or less would be $25, and a course 4 hours or over 4 hours would be $50. So that was just something for comparison's sake. If you look at the results there for the year for this revised fee schedule, it kind of gets you more in line with what we've been bringing in historically. If you take the 1.5 million compared to 1.3 average here, that is a little closer. Now, it certainly, I think with this one, doesn't leave you as much wiggle room. If there's a huge reduction in courses, you could end up being bringing in a lot less money than you had been bringing in historically. And so I ran that scenarios again for the revised fee schedule, just like we did for the proposed one, with the same assumptions and the same limitations on who it was going to reduce their courses. And if you get to around 50% reduction, you're a little less than what you were bringing in historically. If you are at a 25% reduction or 75% reduction, then you're a few $100,000 less. And so I think maybe there's some kind of middle ground in between what we had proposed and what this revised one offers. Some ideas that I'm currently floating around are just making every single course $50 unless it's free, and then it's free. And then unless if it's submitted by the lawyer, then it'd be $25, but no tiers for the 4 hours or more, 4 hours or less, and all courses just being $50 a year, regardless of whether they're on demand or live. And doing that kind of puts you, brings in that additional revenue and gives you that little cushion just in case there's a significant reduction in the courses being offered, but does not tend to break the bank. That's something I haven't run yet. I've run it, but I don't have it in a way to show it to you yet. So we're gonna have to revisit this just to make sure we get this right. I did take a look at just the kind of a selected group of sponsors, some of the ones that have significant numbers of courses, or that are some of our in-state providers, to show you what the effect would be on them versus in these two different scenarios. You'd see that there would be a significant increase from some of these national providers in their increased costs that they would be paying, but also some significant savings from the bar associations or the advocates and school of government and places like that, who are paying more money because they're paying per attendee per hour. And this could cause a reduction in their costs in either of these other two scenarios. So that's the real kind of baseline, is that our fee schedule would result in increased revenue from some providers who are not currently paying a lot to the bar at all, or paying nothing, and potential savings to some of the more established in-state providers who are capture a lot of the market share for attendance, could see savings if they switch to this course application model instead of the attendance fee model. Does anyone have any questions about this, or did I make any sense at all for what I was doing here?
Bert?
I'm speaking out of my area of knowledge with this question. With either of these proposed changes, especially looking at like the National Business Institute going from 46 all the way up to even to 324,000, just a big increase. Are we opening ourselves up to liability by favoring the Bar Association, for example, over other competitors? Like I said, I am way out of my
Right. I mean,
the practice, and I just want to make sure we don't.
No, I don't think there's an issue there. I mean, certainly I didn't do anything to find us some good outcome for any particular association or organization or company.
And I wasn't saying that, Peter. I was just saying how it all played out. That's all.
Right. I mean, it really is just a matter, when you look at what other states do, we would be much more in line with the majority of states that have course applications. And so I don't think we would be, it would be a significant shift, and I think certainly will cause some frustration for sure, but I don't think that there's anything, troubling or improper with it if this shift were to happen. I think it's just would be a result that would have an effect and it would have ripples and we'd have to deal with them. And that creates an unknown for sure, but I don't think there'd be any issues with liability. Yeah.
And please understand, Peter, I wasn't saying there was an intent.
No, I agree.
I was
Yeah.
just saying that if I was NBI, I'd be like, what in the world? So,
Right. Well, yeah. And this wasn't the intent is not to try to get more money from places we haven't. The real intent was to try to get, we want to switch to a course application fee. So the money is collected up front and we're not playing bill collector after a program has happened. And so that switch that's the reason for switching to course applications from attendance. And I feel pretty strong that that's, completely legitimate.
My second question is as to, as you know, and as everyone in this board knows, that the Chief Justice's 2 commissions rely on funding. Do these proposals, do all of them, ensure that they get the historical funding, to including the historical increases in funding, which I believe that they've been getting for the last, ever so many years?
Yeah. So if you look at the totals here, these attendance fees that are brought in, the total fees here, this is the total amount that's brought in. The only part that's not included there is compliance fees, like late fees and those types of things. But that is the pot of money that is currently already being split to the Chief Justice Commission and the Equal Access to Justice Commission, the CLE program, and to the State Bar. So this, what we're looking at here includes the money that would be going to those programs.
And are we just going to, it's my understanding that the rule has a specific amount per hour. Will there be a rule, or will it be sort of a rule every year as to how that split's going to be made?
Yeah, so we have in our proposed rules, in the last rule where we've allowed for a temporary rule, would allow us to maintain that historical funding to those 2 commissions, and we'd have to figure out the right way. And I think it might take a second, it might take some time to determine how to automate that, or what percentage that they would be, what they would be getting. I think we would probably be able to calculate that. Well, historically, they've been getting this percentage, so we would intend to keep that percentage, or at least at the very least maintain the funding that they've been getting historically. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we got Judge Dunstan. I've lost her, but she had her hand
She's
up
back. Yeah.
first.
Okay.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I'm losing driving to Charlotte, so I'm losing service. Thank you, Judge Keever. Question about the individuals that we're looking at right now. Are those companies that would, just to be clear, these are companies that typically charge people $400, $500, $600 to go to these CLEs, and then they pay the $350 for them on the back end. Is that my understanding?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be. I mean, some of these national providers are not, they're not very expensive CLEs, and then they might pay the $350 or they might not. This could be a big provider that does a big meeting that then pays the $350, or most of the time it's somewhere in between, whether you just pay your course registration and then they pay the $350 on your behalf after the fact. Yeah.
And so what if there was just like a small organization that just was wanting to put on like a diversity CLE or something along those lines? They would still be expected to pay the $25 application fee?
If they are charging people to attend, then they would have to pay that application fee.
If they are not charging someone, then they do not have to pay the application fee.
That's correct.
And if they are, and if it's like the NCBA or the WCBA or something along those lines, they also need to pay the application fee?
Yeah, if they're charging, right now, the way that the rule for free courses is that it has to be a course that's available to everyone, regardless of kind of membership in an organization. So that this would, the way that the Wake County Bar does it, where they offer free CLE to their members, would not satisfy, the way it's written would not get that free, the free course application because it's not open to everyone.
Gotcha. And then lastly, as far as the, I know that Judge Keefer brought this up last time, and I strongly agreed, as far as the governmental entities that host it for their employees, that knowing the employees already have to pay the $25, but they're offering that course to further the education, as they have to. That's specific to topics of governmental entities such as the Attorney General's office, DA's office, PD's office, IDS, et cetera, and so forth. Was that accounted for, or?
Yeah, so if they're currently, it really kind of depends on, that would probably be a free course. They're not, I don't think that they're charging their lawyers for that. So that would be a free course application. If it's open to everyone, if it's closed to anyone to attend, then they would have to pay that course application fee. Although I think right now places like the Conference of District Attorneys and the School of Government are they are paying the attendance fees on behalf of their lawyers, and so this would be a significant reduction because they're not having to pay the $350 per hour on behalf of each attendee.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Peter. That's great work, by the way.
Thanks, Judge Dunstan. Judge Eggers?
Yeah, but I feel like I'm sort of out of my league on this as well, but I wanted to ask about, we have various sponsors that are part of this committee. Am I right on that? That we're looking
at the meetings.
They attend the meetings. I don't know if they're voting members, but
Right.
They're not. Well, I was just going to raise about, we want to make sure we steer clear of that potential conflict. Yeah. Because I think that could cause issues, but if we don't have anybody that's voting on it, then.
No, we don't. I don't believe we have any voting members. I know, some of us are members of organizations that offer CLEs, but that I don't believe rises to the level of a conflict that would keep us from being able to vote on this.
And the only thing Kate and Julie attend, but they are not voting members.
Correct.
And I will also say that I'm president-elect of the 10th Judicial District and Wake County Bar Association next year. So if I don't need to vote, then I won't.
I was just raising the issue just because I wanted us to avoid any kind of sticky wicket, because people get real upset. Well, your fees are going down, but mine are going up, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Judge Eggers?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Marissa, you had your hand up. Marissa, you're still mute.
Thank you about that. Thank you for that. So I know that sometimes bar associations are giving CLEs on a topic that is sort of comes up quickly. And my only question was, I don't know if we would be able to or want to differentiate the reported within 40 days, or not reported, but the expedited application. Is there any way to have some sort of a process if it is a very quick turnaround that they're trying to do a CLE and a change of law, that perhaps that could be waived?
Yeah, that's something we can look at for sure. There is, if we get to it today, one of the topics about kind of having an established sponsor, I think that there's the place for presumptive approval of CLEs, or that we currently have for these registered sponsors, that I think might be able to put in some language in the benefits provided to an established sponsor that would allow them to register or apply for a course within a earlier time frame, if those kind of things. So I think that that's something we could definitely look at. I've been working on kind of an established sponsor type rule, and I've gone back and forth on it a few times, but I think there's a lot of value in it for some sponsors to be able to have that kind of presumptive approval for courses and be able to advertise that the course is, available for this amount of credit, and other benefits that we could provide them, as long as there's a good kind of review process to determine who should be getting that status and that they are complying and that good communication with the bar. And so I think that's something that we should continue to look at. The question being, if under this the proposed fee schedule, would we offer some sort of course discount for those established sponsors? And if we move to a different fee schedule with kind of flat fees for all the different courses, would there be any need to have the course discount? We can make the established sponsor process inexpensive as long as they are complying with everything. And that could be, the benefits could be not necessarily financial. They could be other tangible, other benefits like a presumptive approval, monthly invoicing, and those kinds of things.
And that's a lot of value.
Yeah.
Adrienne, you had your hand up earlier. Did you get somebody else ask your question?
They did. Thank you very much, Judge Keever.
And Judge Dunstan, you had another question?
Yes, thank you, Judge Keever.
Then we'll come to Bert.
Oh, yes, thank you. Peter, one other question I remember we talked about last time, I'm sorry if it was addressed and I missed it, is the, like, for example, those that offer P&A courses, those kind of things that are, mandated and required. And I know there's already are currently only a few select individuals, I think, that are allowed to do that. But they still have to pay the full, I guess $25 for each of those courses that are mandated for new admittees.
Yes, that we wouldn't have any changes there. Again, I still think it would be significantly cheaper than paying the attendance fees for all their attendees, just having but again, I also know that some of these programs that do P&As offer it for free. And so because they want it as a benefit to bring in new lawyers. And so if it was to be a free course, then they wouldn't have to pay those that course application fee. But you're also right, Judge. You're also right, Judge, that currently the rules for, we only allow these registered sponsors to offer P&A. That's one of the restrictions. And so that could be another thing that could be, the benefit for becoming an established sponsor is you being able to be allowed to offer the professionalism for new admittees course.
Bert.
I would like to turn everybody's attention to the annual CLE attendance fee of $25. As everyone knows, attorneys are fickle, and attorneys are very sensitive as to their bar dues. And I want to make sure that you think, Peter, and Deborah thinks that $25 is enough, because I know in the back of your mind, our dues could increase based on a needed increase, given that it's been 10 years, as well as the addition as to the attendance fee. What I don't think we need to do is we hopefully will get that ability to increase from the General Assembly, which is much needed next year, and we could do it all at once. But we don't want the $25 to turn to 30, to turn to 35. Every year it goes back up $5 or $10, because that will really upset some people. So I would strongly suggest that if you think 25 will work, maybe we should do 30 just in case, because I'd rather pull the Band-Aid off at once and deal with everybody than Deborah and everyone else have to field calls dealing with a $5 increase. That's all.
Yeah, it's good point, Bert. What I'll do in the next financial analysis is kind of do that with a couple different models there for the attendance fee. The way that the attendance fee is applied right now is that it's only if you're exempt from having to take CLE, then you're not charged that attendance fee. So you end up with about 25,000 lawyers right now who would have to pay that attendance fee. I think the goal was to kind of bring in half of the revenue from that attendance fee and half of the revenue from sponsors. And so we want to make sure that we can keep that kind of level. But I agree. I think I would be hesitant to reduce that down any further than 25 and try not to get much higher than 25 to feel like we're right now, the lawyer essentially pays $42 a year in attendance fees. Now, most of that time that's paid by the sponsor and they don't see it. And so they don't recognize that. But you certainly wouldn't want to go any higher than that, because then that, does clearly show an increase to the lawyer's cost.
Just from a heartache, I would suggest, and I'm just throwing this out, I'm just throwing numbers out. I would suggest to move to say 30 now, then and then let it rise, 4, 5, 6 years, than to have to go back in 3 years and hear all the pain for $5 more, because we'll hear it.
Yeah,
Because
and
then
it
they're
could
gonna
be
say,
something,
we're nickeling and diming them, because
and it might, go ahead, Bert.
because y'all, I say y'all, but the General Assembly, the State Bar, you have spoiled a generation of attorneys, which is good. I appreciate it. By keeping the fees so long at one, at one stable fee for a decade. And if we get into the nickel and diming every 2 or 3 years, that's
Yeah.
really, it's going to cause a lot of pain for Deborah, because Deborah's going to have to hear it. And then the counselors are going to have to hear it. And so I go on the high side and let it ride for 10 years, even if it means we have a little bit more in our coffers, then we could keep a little bit more in reserve, knowing that it will probably be needed on the back end. So
Yep.
I'm done.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Judge Dunstan, did you have another question?
No, just more of a comment. Bert, good to see you. And then also that, Peter, I just came from a conference. Am I frozen? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Okay, sorry. So I just came from a conference with other bar presidents and other metropolitan bars. And what I learned from that conference was that anytime that you raise fees, it needs to be a 5, 7, it needs to end in a 5, 7, or 9. Anytime that you end with a 0, it's a no-no. So I hear Bert at 30, but it might be better off with 29 or 35, 37, 39.
Yeah, the number is, hey, look, Judge, I understand, and I'm right behind you. I was just throwing that out. I was just saying,
Yeah.
I'd rather collect a little bit more now than to have to go back hat in hand, and folks are jumping up and down in 4 or 5 years, or maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know, I'm with you 100%. I'm just saying psychologically wise, I think there's something about the 5, 7, and the 9s make people feel a little bit better.
Yeah. The
And
target
also,
model.
Yeah. And I also think it always comes back to that educational piece of telling people, listen, you're not only are you paying us $43, but you have also been paying these other people a lot more than that they have been, keeping whenever they've been charging $400, $500, $600 for these CLEs, only paying your $350 and pocketing the rest, and also not paying the speakers as well. So it's going to be definitely an educational piece. But Bert, I do agree with you, making sure that we are overshooting it versus under.
So Peter, does that give you some ideas about what you need to follow up with now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as long as everyone's okay, I'm going to take another crack at these fee schedules, and try to work on some different possible solutions for you guys to look at, and with the understanding that annual fee for lawyers, like Bert said, if the state bar were to be successful in getting their the cap increase of the legislature, and then determines that they need to have a dues increase, we also don't want to have it be come in combined with the CLE fee that makes it so big that we face the huge backlash there too. So there's got to be, we want to find that sweet spot that helps us, keeps us steady in the future. And we also, that's the same for the course application fees. You certainly don't want to set a fee schedule and then 2 years in have to say, oh, we did not bring in enough money to be able to fund these programs that we do, and we have to increase it. So it'd be much better to be able to make the decision to decrease it if we felt like we had to, than to make a decision to increase it. So I'm always going to err a little bit on the side of overestimating the number of courses that are dropped and trying to over budget a little bit from what we've brought in historically. So I'm going to come back with some options for you guys to look at.
We're coming up on an hour. Peter's, anything, the other time permitting things, is there anything you want to say about either of those?
Let me just make sure that there's no. I think again we've on the agenda you had a page about the credit for panel members. That's something that we need to determine if we want to change for lawyers, should they, or for speakers who are on a panel, right now our policy is to divide that amongst the panel members, the 6 hours, and if we want to change that at all. And I think that's something we can come back to at another meeting. I know Steve Burt's got a question there.
Judge, given that I missed a couple of meetings, I'm going to get my FaceTime. So I mean, that's just, seriously, about that teaching credit, Peter, I would recommend that the staff come up with a recommendation about what y'all like, and I would just suggest that it just be simple. Keep it simple, and keep it simple, fair, and easy for Deborah and the folks submitting it to computate exactly how many hours. I think that will pay dividends during these changes. That's it. Thanks, Judge.
Okay, thank you, Bert.
And then I talked about established sponsors a little bit. I put an example in here of how something might work. I'm gonna keep coming back and looking at this to see what we can get, with the goal of having something in place that allows for the benefits of kind of monthly invoicing and a presumptive credit to be in place before we get these rules finally approved. So I'll try to have something come back for us to consider at the next meeting. And then the other, just real quick before we move to the last agenda item, I would like to tell you that I think at a future meeting, we should have a discussion about the 3-year period versus 2-year period. I'm starting to see some value in moving to 2 years instead of 3, and the administrative efficiencies that we're creating in other areas might allow us to still be able to administer a program when it's every 2 years instead of 3. Just start thinking about that. I think there's some value in if we say that lawyers are supposed to be maintaining their, staying current, making sure that they're taking CLE at least every 2 years has value, where right now I'm concerned that there's going to be a lot of lawyers who, while they might not wait to the last month, they might wait to the last year to take their CLE. And so there'll be these 2-year gaps from taking CLE. And so something to consider. I just think we have the time here to get it right. So let's just keep that in mind. It's going to be something I'll probably put on an agenda for us to discuss.
Okay, thank you. And the last item.
Yeah, the last item, I'm going to hand this over to Adrian. We have a few special recognitions. Sadly, we are going to be losing some board members after this meeting. It's just heartbreaking. Judge Keever and Judge Eggers and Marissa, terms are expiring and are not eligible for reappointment. And so we will hand this over to Adrian to read some special recognitions.
And I have to echo what Peter says. It's kind of hard for me to believe that you three will be leaving us, since you've been with us the entire time that I've been on the committee. So we have some resolutions of appreciation to read. The first one for you, Marissa. Whereas the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education desires to recognize the services of Marissa S. Campbell and her contribution to the continuing legal education program of the North Carolina State Bar. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Continuing Legal Education from 2016 to 2022, Marissa gave unselfishly of her time and talent. And whereas, as the sole member of the Accreditation Committee for 5 years, Melissa was exceptionally responsive to requests from the staff for a prompt ruling. Under her leadership, the accreditation standards were upheld consistently and fairly for all sponsors, thereby ensuring that only courses with significant intellectual or practical content that would increase participants' professional competence and proficiency as lawyers were accredited. And her sound approach to accreditation appeals helped the board to be firm, fair, and faithful to the accreditation standards. And whereas Marissa was greatly appreciated by the staff of the CLE program for the courtesy and respect that she showed to all staff members, And whereas Marissa's practical approach to the issues before the board will be missed by the members of the board, and her dedication to the continuing legal education program will be missed by the members of the bar. Now therefore be it resolved by the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education that the members of the board hereby express their appreciation and gratitude to Marissa S. Campbell for her outstanding devotion and service to the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education. This, the 7th day of October, 2022. Thank you, Marissa. Okay, cannot believe there are 3 of you all. Judge Eggers. Are you?
Let me
I
fix
mean-
this. Okay. Okay.
Resolution of appreciation for Rebecca Eggers Grider. Whereas the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education desires to recognize the services of Rebecca E. Eggers Grider and her contribution to the continuing legal education program of the North Carolina State Bar. And whereas as a member of the Board of Continuing Legal Education from 2016 to 2022, Judge Eggers Grider gave unselfishly of her time and talent. And whereas as a member of the board, Judge Eggers Grider brought insight, intelligence, and compassion to board deliberations on policy issues and appeals, thereby helping the board to make well-reasoned and fair decisions. And whereas Judge Eggers Grider was greatly appreciated by the staff of the CLE program for the courtesy and respect that she showed to all staff members, and whereas Judge Eggers Grider's common sense approach to the issues before the board will be missed by the members of the board, and her dedication to the continuing legal education program will be missed by the members of the bar. Now therefore be it resolved by the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education that the members of the board hereby express their appreciation and gratitude to Rebecca E. Eggers Grider for her outstanding devotion and service to the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education. This, the 7th day of October, 2022. Thank you, Judge Eggers.
Thank you. You're so kind. Thank you very much.
And last, but certainly not least, Judge Keever, what will we do without you? Whereas the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education desires to recognize the services of A. Elizabeth Keever and her contribution to the continuing legal education program of the North Carolina State Bar. And whereas as a member of the Board of Continuing Legal Education from 2016 to 2022, Judge Keever gave unselfishly of her time and talent. And whereas as a member and subsequently as chair of the board, Judge Keever raised the caliber of board discussion by her candid, direct, and thought-provoking approach to issues, ensuring that the board never adopted a policy, changed a rule, or decided an appeal without considering all aspects of the matter. And this approach to policy issues and to appeals helped the board to make well-reasoned and fair decisions. Whereas under Judge Keever's leadership as chair, the board studied, drafted, and proposed sweeping changes to the rules and regulations governing the continuing legal education program. Whereas Judge Keever was greatly appreciated by the staff of the CLE program for the courtesy and respect that she showed to all staff members. And whereas Judge Keever's thoughtful and calm approach to the issues and her unerring professionalism and collegiality will be missed by the members of the board, and her dedication to the continuing legal education program will be missed by the members of the bar. Now therefore be it resolved by the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education that the members of the board hereby express their appreciation and gratitude to A. Elizabeth Keever for her outstanding devotion and service on the North Carolina State Bar Board of Continuing Legal Education. This, the 7th day of October, 2022. Thank you, Judge Keever.
Thank you. And I think Marissa and Becky and I would all say it's been a real pleasure to serve on this board. and work with all of y'all, particularly in the last period as we've looked at the rules and Peter's brought these changes to us. It's been a great experience.
I echo that. I really appreciate all you. I'm glad to see you back, Bert, and Deborah. I'm glad to see you as well. All of you, really, but those folks have been on my heart for a good while. So I appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Judge Keever, especially you. You kept me in line.
Hey, Judge Keever, I just want to tell you that right before I had my surgery at Duke, one of the last conversations I had with Peter was looking at making you chair of this committee in perpetuity.
It was, it's
It
true.
was on my mind, so I
Yeah.
just had to speak it. So
Thank you, Bert.
and I appreciate everyone and all the great stuff. It's just an honor to be here today, and it's just an honor to be with all of you. Thank you for the kind words earlier.
All right.
You did great, Bert. You really do.
All right. Any other business to come before the board? I hear a motion to adjourn. Oh,
Madam Chair,
David.
is it in order for us to formally adopt those resolutions?
I believe it is, Dayton.
All right. I guess I'm behind on that.
I
So
will
I'm
happily-
taking those as a motion made by Adrian.
Yes.
Is there a
I'll
second?
recuse myself. So
I will happily second that motion.
All right. Thank you, Dayton. All those in favor indicate by saying aye or by hand sign.
Aye.
the other two.
All right. We'll note those have been approved. Thank you, Dayton.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Judge Keever and Judge Eggers and Marissa. It's been an honor to work with you guys. I really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. You're amazing. We're gonna miss y'all.
I'll miss you too. I'm really gonna miss this. I've enjoyed it. So
It's been a great experience.
it
All
has.
Come back in 3
right,
years.
I'll
That's right.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. Nate, second. Those of you interested, all in favor?